Breaking down the dogs, we got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog, and we're looking at the wide receivers at Georgia. George Pickens, of course, didn't get to play much last year, but he's off to the NFL and should be a pretty premier selection there. And take us through the wide receiver group.
So I'm going to come out and make a pretty bold prediction here, but I think this year's wide receivers group is going to be better than last year. Georgia did lose Jermaine Burton to Alabama, but so be it. That's where he wants to go, and he feels like that is the best spot for him. Kudos to that kid, and then hope he does well because kid's talented. But with A.D. Mitchell, Keirs Jackson, Lab McConkey, Brock Bowers all coming back, it's loaded. Brock Bowers is going to have a monstrous season, and we still don't even know how good he is because he's a freshman. I think he can get even better. A.D. Mitchell is someone who kind of had an up and down year with catching at the beginning, and then he really started to hit his stride in the playoffs and stuff. And so I think he's going to carry that confidence into this upcoming season and really just be that deep threat that Georgia needed. And we're not even considering Marcus Rosemary-Jack-Saint, Arian Smith, even Arik Gilbert, who is now practicing with the team again. And so those are three more guys that haven't gotten to prove themselves because of injuries or other circumstances. And so Georgia has a loaded down wide receivers room that Stetson can pick and choose who he wants to throw to. I'm not even considering Dominic Blaylock, who was also hurt most of the year last year and just really didn't do much of anything outside of special teams. And it's exciting. That's probably the room I'm most excited about. I'm usually tight ends and other things, but I know I'm including the tight ends this year with them. But that group has so much talent and potential. It's going to be fun because we all love when Georgia runs the ball, but it was so exciting to see those 60-yard passing touchdowns to Brock Bowers and then the big one to A.D. Mitchell in the national championship game. So I'm really, really stoked about that group.
So you're taking on the wide receivers. You threw in Brock Bowers. Of course, he's a guy that a lot of people kind of passed on. They didn't necessarily figure that he was going to do much, even though he was a high 4-star, if not a 5-star out of California, third-rated tight end in the nation. And then boom, the rest is history. He's the best tight end in college football. I don't think it's really an argument at this point. Go ahead, Savannah.
I didn't even mention Darnell Washington.
That's where I was headed.
The other one. And then it's crazy that there's been more than one kind of expert or analyst come out and say that Oscar Delp, who is a incoming true freshman, could be another Brock Bowers. He has the same size and speed. He could be his little brother. And so those are two more names to kind of just be like, yep, that's two other weapons Georgia has. I know Georgia lost a lot on defense last year, but there were some guys like Pickens that they lost. And then nobody will ever realize how big James Cook was and how big that loss is because there's this much depth kind of behind him that they're going to be able to just kind of plug in people and see who works where. And even, people who were worried about Jermaine Burton leaving, second, number 2 wide receiver on the list after the year, but A.D. Mitchell was right there with him. And so I wouldn't be worried at all about Georgia's wide receivers heading into the spring.